Global happenings today. We communicate, we analyze global news. Stay tuned. Hello guys, welcome to Global Happenings today. We have a trending news here for you. And the headline of the news reads, Femi Falana tells NBA to sanction Osinbajo and other lawyers in President Buhari's cabinet. But before we continue with details of the news and further analysis, we'd like to encourage you to please subscribe to our channel by clicking on the red subscribe button below, and then a bell icon will pop up. Hit the red icon or hit the bell icon, and immediately we publish videos, you will receive notification. All right, let's go into the details of the news. Mr. Falana, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria and also a human rights activist, a lead of the defense team of Omoyele Sowore, has placed a demand on the Nigerian Bar Association to take disciplinary action against lawyers in President Muhammadu Buhari's cabinet over what he described as the desecration of the court, with Sowore rearrest at the Federal High Court in Abuja, causing disruption of the proceedings of the court. According to him, he said his legal team will be meeting on Saturday to determine their next line of action. He said that there were 10 lawyers, with 4 of them who are senior advocates in the cabinet of President Muhammadu Buhari, who are to live up to their oaths to defend the constitution and other law of the country by ensuring that the rule of law was observed by the government. The son in the cabinet are Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and also the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami, Mr. Festus Keyamo, who is the Minister of State for Labor, and lastly Mr. Baba Tunde Fashola, who is the Minister of Works and Housing. He said even though President Muhammadu Buhari has a duty to caution the Department of State Services, the blame of the desecration of the court today rests squarely on lawyers in government who are under a duty to ensure that the rule of law is observed. According to him, he said they have all taken the oath to respect the Constitution and other laws of the country. That Constitution guarantees the independence and impartiality of the court. They therefore cannot sit in a cabinet under the regime that terrorizes the court and subverts the rule of law. It is a matter the Nigerian Bar Association to take up against a lawyer in the cabinet by instituting disciplinary proceeding against them. Faulting the arrest of his client, he described it as contemptuous. He also noted that it was not backed by any arrest warrant or detention order of the court. According to him, he said there is no warrant of arrest, there is no detention order. What DSS did today was a height of contempt of court. Nobody is above the law. You either abolish the law or allow them to function effectively. There is a situation where the DSS operatives invaded the court and forced the judge to adjourn proceeding. They changed the judge out of her court, disrupted the proceedings, and forced the judge to adjourn all cases. These are manifestation of fascism, which cannot be accepted in any civilized society. This has never happened in Nigeria, and where you take over a court forcefully in order to arrest an unarmed citizen. You remember that it was the illegal invasion of the National Assembly by mass DSS men that led to the dismissal of the former DG DSS by this government. So for the same barbaric conduct to occur again is unacceptable. This is a regime that paraded 10 senior lawyers, including 4 senior advocates of Nigeria. Asked if he had been informed of any reason why his client was rearrested or whether he was going to be freshly, he said no. All right, we are going to be looking at this in a jiffy. This is, as we had said before now, this is quite unpopular, especially in a democratic setting. And he has, Femi Falana has informed NBA go ahead and discipline some of those who are lawyers in the cabinet. But the question is, how independent is NBA? And another question is, who are they actually reporting to? Those are some of the questions we are going to look at. Do you think they have the capacity as at now to discipline Osinbajo? Do you think that it's just a story for another day? We're going to be looking at that, and my colleague will be talking extensively on what may possibly be the outcome of it. Do you think that right now, with the position of Yemi Osinbajo, that these guys can actually sanction them as requested by this guy, what's his name, by Falana? But before we go ahead with that, let's just look at some of the reactions of Nigeria in respect to the demand that Falana has put up to NBA. One person say here, ordinary Buhari is a crude military dictator, cannot outlive a democratic government guided by the rule of law, except they are sellouts and deceitful beings such as Osinbajo, Keyamo, and co, who pretend to be good people. That provided him the skill to overcome the norms of the judiciary, thereby aiding him in raping democracy and destroying the rule of law, but judgment awaits them. We hear him and his sycophants say he will take over from Buhari, but that will only happen if God ceases to exist. All right, let's look at another one here. Someone is saying here that I just pity Osinbajo. It's going to be a long 4 years of frustration for him. Another one said, only the gullible will believe a coup plotter who truncated democracy in the past will turn a lover of democracy overnight. No amount of rainfall can wash off the tiger stripe. A lot of reactions by Nigerians here. This one says, it's unfortunate that Femi Falana, Omoyele Sowore, Tunde Bakare, Tinubu, Occupy Nigeria, Ojota protesters all enthrone this tyrannic government despite knowing past Buhari's antecedent in the history of Nigeria. Now the tiger have bare its fangs. They now remember due process. Well, that said, this is truly a pivotal basis for the STUF, CGN, NGC, League of Benchers, NBA, and all Nigerians of conscience to rise up against the continued bastardization of legal and democratic process in this nation. The AGF should have long invited the DSS boss or Mr. President that he is answerable to explain all this lawlessness or give reasons why they should not be committed to prison for violating the Nigerian constitution. Meanwhile, tyrants have no regard for the rule of law. Only mass revolt and divine intervention can salvage this country. That is much that we can take right now from the response of the people. But what do you have to say about the demand of Femi Falana?
Well, it's looking at the demands, it looks like due process. It looks as the right way to move on, being that all his hands have been tied technically. But let's look at this critically. Son Yemi Osinbajo, Festus Keyamo, and Malami here, and Fashola, they're all in the cabinet. They are also part of judiciary, even though they are moving now as executives. They know a lot about judiciary, but occupying places of executive. Now, if the NBA, Nigerian Bar Association, is to sanction them, who will execute it really? I'm wondering, because if they're going to execute this right now, they're not, especially Osinbajo right now. He's not performing as a lawyer. Rather, he's seen more on the executive side, being that he's the vice president. If you sanction him now, or disciplinary actions taken against him now, it may not be felt. Probably maybe after 4 years of his tenure, then maybe he'll be felt. But then he has a way of defending himself. If you sanction him, how would you put it into bear? Okay, probably you may tell him not to come to court. He's actually not always seen in the court. I don't know.
Or
but
possibly to strip him
of his son, probably to strip him of his son. Well, I don't know. But we're talking about, when you say disciplinary action, we're talking about something that's stringent. What is stringent enough right now? Because Nigerian democracy is bleeding, really.
But for me, I think these guys are helpless right now. Because the truth of the matter is, you can't put your hand inside oil and you hold a white sheet, To some extent, for me, I believe they are helpless. They have already been initiated into this whole thing, and they didn't think that it will bring a dent on their image as lawyers. But unfortunately, their hands are deep into the shit. So getting your hand out now will just be, you are shooting yourself on the foot, You can't make progress again, because let the truth be told, already these guys have, they messed up a great deal. And currently you can't really even tell some of the things that they have held against them right now at this point. Because if, for example, there are corruption charges against the vice president and he tries to voice and say anything against the executive, which will result to, chaos in the presidential cabinet, automatically it will lead to exposure of those corruption charges, which will not augur well with his political future. He has already a dream of vying for the position of the president, allegedly, though he has not come out to say anything about it. But allegedly, a lot of people are saying that he has been bearing that in his mind to become the president of Nigeria. So doing anything at this last minute, I call this because it's just the last time Buhari will find himself as the president. After 4 years, he will be coming down. So if he wakes up now and begin to do anything or say anything that he is not, in parentheses, not allowed to say, and make it public, automatically it will cause a lot of rancor in the cabinet, and automatically may cause some things which may affect his political future. So all the same is trying to protect it, and whatever sanction you're going to give to them will not really affect them, as my colleague had rightly said, because right now they are not practicing lawyers. Imagine someone like Fashola, he is Minister of Road and all of that. The other guy is Minister of Labor. So what kind of sanction are you going to give to them, apart from someone who, like the Minister of Justice, I'm talking about Melami, and that's the only person that is really, though he's still in the capacity of the executive. But I think whatever sanction that will be given to them will affect them. I think right now some of these ills will be written down and kept for future reference. So by the time we hit maybe the next 4 years, where Osinbajo will no more be the vice president of Nigeria, and maybe unfortunately he's not been elected the president of Nigeria, these guys can now begin to roll out the drums and tell them these were the things that you were guilty of. I think that's when it will be really, really painful, because by the time they begin to invoke all the sanctions against them, it might lead to even, disallying
them of their
son and all of that. That's just my opinion.
My fear, again, this is rather sad, coming in the heels the fact that these guys are son, and if we all know a little about Festus Keyamo, he's quite an orator. He talks, he's bold, he airs his view. But for the first time in a very long time that I've known Festus Keyamo, he didn't say a word. It makes it difficult. I'm sure he's just thinking, I know the rule of law. I know what the law says. And what this guy have done is against the rule of law. How do I defend this? How do I say that DSS did the right thing? And how do I say DSS did not do the right thing? And now all of a sudden, Festus Keyamo, a very good orator, cannot say a word. It puts them in a very wonderful situation, and that's why I guess sometimes silence, sometimes it try to, when you are silent over a thing, just hope and pray that that wind of uproar will just pass and hope no damage is done. But the truth is, Nigeria won't forget. The truth is, the common man won't forget. An arm of government have been undermined. Even if Nigerians will forget, the lawyers and the lawyer in question, Sowore, and the people in the court may not, in fact, will not forget. And don't forget that it was all over the internet. Internet never forgets, even if it will play off in our memories. All it needs is just a video play, a throwback picture here and there, and boom, remembrance has been put into place. I feel if there's any need to correct now, if there's any need for them to voice now, so that for posterity's sake, they will not say, when at so and so time when this happened, what did you do? What did you not do? Let them at least air their views and say, this is our stand. But I guess, like my colleague has rightly said, there's more to this than meets the eyes.
All right, thank you very much. Let's leave it there. Go to our comment section, let us interact. What's your viewpoint on the demands of Femi Falana in respect to disciplining some of those who are lawyers?